Okay, I'm kind of on a pokey streak here. As I mentioned in an earlier video, I'm going to do some of the husbandry videos with my Poecilotheria genus species. I absolutely love this genus. If I was going to choose one genus of tarantula that I would stick with, if I could only have one, it would probably be Poecilotheria or Formictopus for terrestrial. It's a tough call. Hopefully it never happens. Anyway, this is going to be a really quick one because I do hate disturbing these guys. They're very well behaved for me. This is my P metallica, one of my favorite tarantulas in my collection, only because I am kind of a sucker for a blue tarantula. I picked this one up, I believe it was on my birthday, so it'll be in February. 2 years ago, and at that point it was a 1.25-inch sling. She has blossomed into a beautiful young lady. I got lucky, hit the jackpot, and got a female first try. This is one that is talked about as a starter pokey species. I do think that temperament-wise, they're a little more skittish than defensive. This one will tend to bolt very quickly if she's disturbed and hide, which is great. As I mentioned in an earlier video with pokies, generally speaking, if you're going to do maintenance or feeding or anything that's going to require you to open the enclosure, usually you want to tap it and disturb it a little bit, because most of them will either flatten their way down and try to hide and use what nature gave them as natural camouflage to hide themselves, or they'll go to their burrows or hide underneath the cork bark, so then you can kind of do your maintenance. I'm going to crack this open and see if she'll sit there for a minute. This is a species that can be very photosensitive. I've been fortunate in that mine's actually fairly good. There she is. And as you can see, those blues are very bright. This is a species that I see people photoshopping quite a bit and kind of amping up the intensity. She looks actually more washed out right now through the viewfinder of my phone than she does in person. But great eater. She right now will eat 2 or 3 large crickets a week. She's really powering them down. I don't keep this species particularly moist. I will moist up the substrate once in a while on one half by pouring water over it, but I don't go crazy with it. This isn't something that I, spray them down. I don't spray my spiders or worry if it dries out. It dried out right before her last molt. I moistened it down. She molted fine. She's got a very big water dish. Back up for a minute here. Very big water dish. I picked these up on Petco at Petco on sale. Very, very cheap. I like them. They're white, clean. If I move over here, you'll see that this one has been well ventilated with many, many holes that I burned in with a soldering iron. Very, very simple to do, but you want to do it outside because the fumes are pretty ridiculous even outside. If anybody's interested in getting this type of enclosure, I found one of the stickers, so it'll be easier to just unfold this. Sterilite show-offs. There's the dimensions. And if you look, these are actually meant to kind of carry hanging files, hence this ridge right up here. But I like the size for the smaller arboreals. I do use a sterilite container, a 24-quart one that I get from Target for my larger species. But this one's really good for the smaller ones. The plants I got at Petco. I signed up for their newsletter. I think I paid 40% off for them. They ended up being very, very cheap. So I throw a big plastic plant in there. Cork bark for a hide. I get the slabs from a place called Any Herp. I can put a link up if people are interested. And there's some sphagnum moss in there. So when I do moisten the substrate down inside the enclosure, what I will do is basically pour water over it, kind of like simulating a downpour, and then let it dry out in between. Speaking of substrate, this is a mix of cocoa fiber and peat with a little vermiculite tossed in. As you'll notice, I have to clean the outside of this. The arboreal species do kind of have cannons when they go to the bathroom, so they kind of just squirt it all over the place, which is rather unsightly, especially for a pretty little arboreal like this. For temperatures, I keep the temperatures in my room. Wintertime, she's higher up on the shelf, so it never gets below 72, and then gets up to about 76, 78 in the winter. On extreme days, I do have a space heater. In the summer, we're talking mid-70s to 80 or so. She's grown at a medium pace. I will say she has grown a little bit slower than some of my other species of pokies. So I think this probably is a species that if you kept it a bit warmer would grow faster. The regaluses, the vittata, the smithy I have, the striata, all of those guys have grown much, much faster than this one has. But still, I'm hoping to have her for a long time. She's beautiful. Temperament-wise, again, she's more skittish than some of my other pokey species. Like my vittata is a lot more chill than this one. When she's spooked, she'll kind of scramble around really quick. As I mentioned in an early video, with the pokies, one thing that I've noticed the majority of is when they do get in one of their super quick bolts where they start sprinting around, they kind of will go around the enclosure. They generally don't go up. So if you're trying to pick a proper enclosure for them, you want something that allows you good opening on the top, good access to give them a clear passage in case they do bolt. This isn't something you want your hand in the way of if it's trying to get away, because a bite from one of these guys is going to put a hurting on you. A lot of localized pain, cramping. People report basically feeling the after effects of a bite for sometimes months afterwards. That's something you want to play around with. So that's something to remember. Although these are a gorgeous little spider, very, very beautiful, they could be, you know, dangerous in the wrong hands. A bite from one of these guys is going to hurt. It's not going to kill you, but I've heard people say, oh my God, I wish I was dead, because the bite hurts so bad. I've never experienced pain that bad in my life, and I hope not to. So this isn't something I plan to get bitten by. I'm going to just give it a little poke again. Let it focus. There she is. And again, I've heard some of these guys being very, very photosensitive and reclusive. I'm very fortunate. Mine kind of sits right out in the open all the time. Doesn't really hide that much. She's generally always there, so I always get a very good look at her. And again, I wish these colors were a little more rich. I'm looking at her right now from beyond the phone, and she looks a lot brighter than she does here. But this is the Poecilotheria metallica, or Gooty ornamental, I believe is I want to say is the common name of it. I have a hard time remembering the common names. Great spider, probably one I would consider a decent starter pokey next to the vittata. But again, you want to make sure you have some experience with fast New World arboreals before you tackle one of these guys, because when they move, there's nothing quite like it. And the bite at the end of that, if it ends up running up your arm and biting you, is going to be painful. P. metallica.